everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Retired Hood Rat Podcast. I'm your host, Comedian T.Barb. Today, we have an amazing show for you. We're going to be talking narcissism. This is part two to our narcissism series. We're going to talk a little bit of domestic violence, a little bit of narcissism, and just get into it. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much for tuning in to the Retired Hood Rat Podcast. Don't forget, every Monday at 9 a.m., we are live on YouTube. So subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And every Thursday, we're on all platforms. So go like us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or anywhere you can hear podcasts, Retired Hood Rat Podcast. Today, our guest are some ladies who are well versed in narcissism. We're going to give it up for our first guest. It's my girl, comedian Breezee Gonzales.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. Thank you for joining the show. You're going to share your story about narcissism with us today. So thank you so much. And we also have friend of the show, comedian Shelly T in the building.
What up, though? What up, though? Thanks for having me.
Yes. So we appreciate you. We got some air horns for you. And then we also have life coach Lisa Hunt, also known as Lisa in the building.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us this morning. We start the show with our Retired Hood Rat word of the day, which is my opportunity to give some inspiration, be the Ayanla of the Gito. And then we do our hood rat prayer. Remember, the prayer is not about any deity. It's just about giving positive energy to the universe or manifestation, which we feel will come back to you. Okay. And today's word, okay, this is coming out of Auntie Playbook 101. It is okay to grow and let go. Okay, do you hear me? It is
Real.
okay to grow and let go. It is okay to transform to something else and to understand that the things that you used to serve you don't serve you anymore. And there are people that will try to bind you to your past, bind you to what you used to do, bind you to who you used to be, but you're not that person anymore. You've grown, you put in the work. And don't ever let anybody downplay the work that you put in to be a better person. And what I mean is, so what if 10 years ago, and we have that a lot with the cancel culture nowadays, where a person did this, and so we just want to hold them to that standard. No, it's okay for me to grow. Yeah, I was a hood rat. Yeah, I grew up. My parents met fresh out of prison. We didn't have much, but now I have my own house. I'm this person now. So this is the person that I am, and I'm going to walk into that every day. And I'm not going to continue to be uncomfortable to make other people comfortable because my growth has exceeded where they are. Sometimes you have to let those people go. And it could be a very hard thing. I'm not saying that it's easy. Transition is difficult. But if you're dedicated to that and that's who you've decided to be, sometimes you have to let people go. And it's going to seem like you're the bad person. At first, it really is, because it's going to be like, oh my God, I'm turning my back on this person, or I'm not there for them the way I used to be. But it is okay to let go for your own growth. Because let me tell you something. Put yourself first. I'm not saying to shun other people. I'm a very giving person, but I'm learning day by day that everybody else going to put themselves first. And that's where this talk on narcissism goes so deep, because it's not that we just started saying narcissism and all of a sudden everybody is a narcissist. What it is our society is developing a personality disorder overall, where we're more concerned about ourselves than the greater good. So although I'm always going to be concerned with the greater good, just because I'm a good person and I understand that something my parents didn't understand, which is that I have to leave a legacy for my son and then my grandkids, and it's going to be great grandkids I might not never see. But how can I impact the world to make it better for them? Also, how do I keep my name alive? You think about somebody like Tupac. Me and Shelly T was just talking about this. Tupac died at 25. You'll remember his legacy forever. So only thing you really have is your legacy and what you leave to the future, because you're only here for a second compared to the length of the world. But while you're here, love on you. Be okay with loving on you, and understand with each level it's a new devil. And as you grow, you might have to let go. I'm talking about the Church of Joy Road.
Amen.
That's our Retired Hood Rap word of the day. Don't forget to tune in to the Retired Hood Rap podcast. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. Leave your comments. If you're feeling the Retired Hood Rap word of the day, leave your comments. Subscribe, like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, like it, subscribe. Tell a friend. Listen on everything. Damn. Just listen. Because I'm giving out a message. Okay, and of course, it's time for our Retired Hood Rap word of the day. Our prayer, because I talk so fast. That's that ADD. Crack kids got to have some side effects, okay? And ADD, I'm sure, is one. So, our Retired Hood Rap prayer, remember, is not about Jehovah or whatever deity you pray to. It's just about putting that manifestation out into the world. You can bow your heads, close your eyes, but if you're driving, don't do that. Do not do that. Okay. All right. Dear God, we are so thankful, and we understand that gratitude makes way for many blessings. God, I just ask that you touch somebody's heart today and allow them to know that they are worthy. Allow them to know that they are enough, that they may not need that negativity in their life to thrive. They don't need those friendships. They don't need those relationships which hold them down, which bind them. It's okay to be alone for the greater good of yourself, for your own sanity. God, we just ask that you align people with people that make them better, not make them worse, God. In your name we pray. Amen. Bow, bow, bow. I need my explosion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are talking narcissism. We have our guest in the building, Breezee Gonzales.
Hey there. Super grateful to be here and speak on this subject because I do feel like an expert at this point.
Oh, we got our ex and Shelly T, who was a part of our narcissism part 1 episode.
What up, though? How y'all doing?
And she started off sharing her story. And we're gonna finish hearing that. And of course, life coach Lisa Hunt in the building.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. So what you say, Lisa?
I said, I'm so glad to be here. You just said a whole word with that introductory.
Oh, thank you. We trying to give the
You
words.
did a whole sermon. I love that.
Thank you. So I'm glad that we have you here to give a perspective. But let's do this. Breezy, can you tell our audience a little background on you and what makes you an expert? You say you're an
Sure.
expert on narcissism.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I grew up in Bloomfield Hills, and I have a mother and a father and a brother, and my dad was unfortunately very physically abusive to my whole family and really utilized all of the different tactics of a narcissist to keep us isolated from each other, to abuse us and, do the things that he wanted to do and get away with it. And my mom's also a narcissist too. So he needed to have another narcissist as a wife in order to continue the isolation and the pitting against each other and things like that.
So when you say you said the pitting against each other, and can you maybe give us an example? Do you mean like sibling against sibling?
Yeah.
Because this is an interesting perspective. A lot of times when we think narcissism is relationships, but you're talking in the family.
Oh yeah. So my dad would unfortunately beat my brother in front of me if I ever was like, hey, stop bugging me or whatever my brother was doing, or turn the music down, or I complained in any way. My dad would just go full force on my brother, and so that kept my brother angry at me and kept me from ever wanting to be around him or anything like that, just because I didn't want that to happen. And I suffered from sexual abuse at the hands of my father, and I didn't know that my brother was also dealing with that.
Wow.
Yeah, and he had to keep us separate
Yeah.
because
Y'all would put two and two together.
because if we got together, then it would be over for him.
Wow. So it's only you and your sibling.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were pit together against each other. Let me ask you this, because it's a very deep story, and I want to first say, and I know this doesn't. Some people say you shouldn't say this. Some people say it's okay to say this, but I just want to acknowledge. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your strength.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to get away from saying I'm sorry that happened to you. Some people feel offended by it, some people don't, because
Honestly, at this point in time, I feel very lucky that I am able to do something like this where I can speak on it, and hopefully somebody out there is listening and can have something click for them, or whatever. To be strong enough to be able to speak on something like this, it does take a lot of bravery.
It does.
And not everybody's up to the task. So it kind of falls on our shoulders, the ones who can speak on it, to do so.
Yeah, to speak out, because it makes other people, they understand, because you pinpointed a few things, and this is where I want to pinpoint before I get a little bit off into Shelly's story a little bit, is that you said white family, West Bloomfield. Shout out to all our listeners across the country, but if you're from the Detroit, only in Detroit, if you're from the Metro Detroit area, then you know that West Bloomfield's an affluent area,
Yeah.
considered ritzy. So on the outside, it's mom, dad, daughter, son, which is ideal for the family. One boy, one girl. West
Exactly.
Bloomfield, money.
Yep. Everything
But
looked
it's a lot
great.
of narcissism in the home.
But yeah,
is that a
behind
part of the
closed
front?
doors. Oh yeah, it's my mom's biggest worry was whether she was gonna have the latest car to drive us to school in. That was, or if the mom in the car line looked at her rude, she was like those were her priorities. Though that's what she managed her emotions for. But when it came to the physical abuse and the emotional abuse, she just played right into it. It was like she was part of keeping us down.
Let me ask you this: is your mother and father still together now?
No.
Okay, no. Are they still alive?
Yes.
Okay.
And my mother actually moved in with us this past summer.
Okay, that's another. We're gonna go on to that next. Lisa,
Good
being
morning.
being a life coach, do you hear about narcissism and domestic violence within the family that's not, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife? Is this something that is common?
Yes, I'm a certified domestic violence advocate, and throughout the community, they've changed it a lot to domestic abuse rather than domestic violence. It happens throughout the family. Right now, you have the kids beating the parents beating the children. It goes throughout the family, and I'm listening to the story. West Bloomfield, those very affluent neighborhoods, we call those silent cries, because those are the households, the communities, the families that many of us, like from Dexter, from Joy, from the hood, we don't see that happening because we grow up looking at they have everything. You have everything, but not understanding that narcissism, the emotional turmoil, and trauma, unaddressed trauma for generations carries on for so long and for so deep. So when I'm listening to the beautiful lady's story, I'm thinking like, wow, I wonder where did her mom's trauma begin? Wonder where did her dad's trauma begin? Wonder who didn't address their trauma and their pain. So yes,
I am always trying to explore that myself. And at some point in time, I have to remember that it's not my job to figure it out. It's not gonna. I'm never going to figure it out. So I'll never get that closure to be able to know why they act the way they do.
And you know what? Hold that thought, because at the end of the conversation, I do want to talk with Lisa a little bit about closure, because it's closure a fallacy. But we also have Shelly T. So we have Breezee, who has had some family narcissism, which we'll talk about next, what that led to later on for you. But Shelly, you started in our first narcissism discussion talking about, your more, it was more of a
Relationship.
God damn it, relationship narcissism. And can you touch a little bit on your story? I know some people heard
and
it,
I
but
was gonna say also, I wanted to add that, like, whether you are the narcissist or susceptible to being a narcissist enabler, it all starts in the home. So, someone was abused somewhere down the line, and they learned a way to cope with it. And whether they start abusing people in their next relationship, it's just a matter of time, or therapy. But yeah, I experienced a few narcissists or people with narcissist tendencies in relationships. And the most monumental one was one with the woman. And I know now that relationship was because of some wounds that I had with my mother dynamic relationship, where growing up I didn't feel like necessarily like a connection with my mom, as far as like we would hang out and stuff, we had fun, but like she didn't ever like express emotion. So like, that like how people will say your parents apologize by saying, let's go to the store. Like,
oh yeah,
it was
definitely
never like a verbal I love you or anything like that. So when I did decide to start dating women, it was like I got all this love and attention and nurturing from her, which was like different. I never had a nurturing relationship, because with men, they don't really nurture you the same. And so experiencing that with the woman let me open. But then also I started realizing that I became her enabler to abuse me as well, because I would just let her come back,
And you feel like Lisa was saying, that is a direct, because I think that, and Breezy, and I love that you're sharing that, because it took me getting older to realize that my father was a narcissist, right? And it's not till I get grown and I'm like, yo, no wonder my mama was bugging out, because why would you do that? As an adult, you think back like, damn, okay, it was 27 girls braid my hair every week. You know what I mean? I did. My mama didn't know who was going to be watching me, because you might have this woman. And I love my dad, daddy's girl. My dad still was a great guy. And I think sometimes we take out we don't consider the fact that people can have good qualities and still be this narcissist. And we don't understand it's a difference between having some narcissist qualities, which we all have, and actually having the disorder, or actually being consumed with it. And I felt like up until recently, every man that I dated or chose was a narcissist as a result of my attraction to narcissists, because I was raised by one.
Because the highs are so high.
The love bombing. That's what they call. We learned that from the first episode.
Yes, the love bombing is so intense. I had never experienced. Well, I experienced. And here's the thing: I did experience it with the man a couple of years prior to it. But like, the thing about when you heal from stuff, it was almost like I forgot, that I had dealt with like this love bombing, and it can come a different way. So you got to be, more receptive to it. Like back in my younger days, I would be so excited when somebody stroked my ego, and I could tell, I didn't differentiate the two between somebody genuinely liking me and them just trying to flatter me and stroke my ego. And it's like, I don't get off to somebody telling me every 5 seconds I look good. Yes, that is a requirement for you to like acknowledge my beauty and tell me. But like, it's a thing. You notice it too after you get over that type of shit. You like, nah, they trying to play with my
play with your
mind.
mind. Or
Yeah.
women don't understand when dating, especially women when dating, will tell will we'll tell them everything that we
Yeah.
like, and then when they start doing stuff we like, we'll be like, oh my God, he loves what I love, she loves what I love.
You can't tell
No,
them
you
nothing.
already told them this shit. So
Yeah.
they know to bring a banana, and they don't mind love bombing, which is you gotta listen, go back and listen to Retired Hood Rat episode about narcissism part 1, because that was my first time hearing the concept of love bombing, which is where they give you everything. So Breezee, because you know the source of your narcissism and abuse came from your father, and your mother was just a bystander, I guess, or an accomplice, or
Yeah.
allowed it. Was there love bombing? Was it, you get a lot of
Yeah.
gifts based on the abuse? Or
Well, the interesting thing is that, my dad is like a really likable guy. Everybody that knows him likes him.
most narcissists are.
And
Yeah.
he's extremely charming, and you would never think this guy would ever do any of the things that he's done. And so on the times that he wasn't in his, the cycle of abuse is the love bomb, and then walking on eggshells,
Mhm.
and then the explosion, and then the recovery, and then back to the love bomb, because you don't want them to forget what you have with them. So for me and my family, it was there would be a major blowout, and then there would be maybe a week of some recovery where like everybody was just not really talking to each other and just kind of getting by. And then, my dad would say, oh, let's go do something, like, let's go do this fun thing as a family, and then we would go do the totally normal thing as a family. And abuse wasn't happening. And those were moments that I was like, wow, this is nice. This is what it's like to be a real kid. And then, same with my mom. It was, she, I can't tell you how many times my mom threatened to commit suicide, like as a kid. And I can tell you that right after that, she would take me shopping, buy me, something
Mm.
to get me back to being okay
Yeah.
and accepting of her emotional.
Abuse. And I've seen that with narcissists, with the threatening to commit suicide and do self-harm. And just want to stop and say shout out to Cece the Spartan, everybody on my TikTok. If you're not following me on there, Comedian T.Barb. And love bombing, just for people who are tuning in here and didn't hear the first show, is where your maid or your narcissist or your offender, they give you a lot of things. And most narcissists start with that: lunch at your favorite place, gifts, money, time, whatever your love language is. They tap into it, and they very heavy and aggressive on it.
Yeah.
And then they have the explosion, or then it's a unstable after that. And then once it's unstable, they blow up, and to get you back, they love bomb you.
Yeah. Or then they breadcrumb you.
Oh yeah.
And then they breadcrumb you, and so they give you a little sprinkle of it, but it's never quite as indulgent as the first love bomb. So it's like a drug.
Well,
in
yeah,
a
And
because
sense.
then it's the pity party as well. They
Yeah.
have their own. They have their own pity party. Like, oh my God, look what I did. I didn't mean to do this.
right,
So
yeah.
I was gonna ask you that, Lisa. So I know that you're, certified in domestic violence. Do you see, is there a difference between domestic violence and narcissism, or is it something that's automatically built in?
Well, let me say this. I was married to a narcissist. Um, look up the definition in the dictionary, and there's his face smiling. Like she said, the highs are so high, but the lows are so intentionally manipulative. And for me in my marriage, it seemed like once I got in, and it was like, damn, I didn't know this was the package deal. He was, everything had to be about him. But, for me, he was different, because I had dated nothing but drug dealers, hustlers. Everybody that I knew had been to prison, or they were at Woodline Cemetery. So this guy had a stable job, a good job. He had been on his job. He did the honeymoon thing with me. And when he said, will you, before he could say Mary, I was like, hell yeah. The ring is big. Hey, let's do this. And it wasn't until he worked for the railroad. And so he was on 4 days and off 3 days. And it wasn't until he was laid off that I really started to see the manipulation. And he took me from a high that touched the sky to the ground, to the ground. And sometimes had me believing like, damn, what did I do? Like Shelly said, like me trying to figure out what was his trauma, not understanding back then that it's not my job to figure out what your trauma was and what your mama did and what your daddy did to you. And I had to learn to let go and grow.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, I believe in my experience, for those abusers that I have met, yeah, they have a deep level of narcissism implanted in their souls. And it's actually a mental health diagnosis. And you know, I see it throughout when I'm trying to help individuals who are coming out of their situation, and I'm asking them things about the abuser, and I see narcissism written all over that individual. And it's sad. I'm listening to all of you all stories, and I'm like, damn, not saying age, but I'm like, I'm probably like old enough to be like all of their mothers or something, and I feel all of y'all stories wrapped in one, wrapped in one.
I think when it comes to when it comes to that narcissism narrative, I was just curious to know, because it seems like that goes hands in hand with domestic abuse. And because and I love actually hearing the story of all cultures going through this, because I think when you Black, for some reason we tend to just think it's just us, it's only our community, even though when you look at the trauma, we have deep-rooted trauma from slavery. That's a whole nother story, episode to talk about, that is so deeply rooted and ingrained. But slavery, the effects of that don't just come only on the Black side. That comes from that slave owner mentality.
Absolutely.
That comes from that whip your ass, or like you say, because back then the slave owner, he was rich. He was rich as fuck, doing his thing. Today he would have been in the club popping bottles, getting lit. You know what I mean? But he was ruthless.
Yeah.
And so that still translates to a lot of our Caucasian counterparts. I'm not saying everybody, because there's somebody gonna be on here, but the truth is the truth. And I know in today's world,
and that's misogyny and patriarchy, all that is
everything. That's women, as far as and it's gonna be opinion, because some people think, well, it's freedom of body, and then some people say a hoe is a hoe. But if you look at the history of the world, and Shelly T and I, and shout out to Shelly if you're watching this, she did my hair, it's beautiful. Shout out to Shelly. We watched some stuff about the beginning of Jack Daniels, the beginning of the cigarette company. All of that shit comes from a ruthless and violent existence, and we have to remember, our country really was started by those people from other countries. So it runs deep. So let me ask you this. You said there was some sexual abuse within the family, Breezee. Was there ever any prosecution brought to that? And did you ever try to seek some closure?
Yeah. So when I was 9 years old, I finally got the courage to tell my mom. Sorry, I'm probably going to cry a little bit. I'm going to try not to, but I finally got the courage to tell my mom, and she didn't want to tell anybody. She immediately said, you know what, we'll handle this as a family. And I remember her saying, we'll sweep it under the rug. And I'll never forget that.
How old were you, if you don't mind?
9.
Asking? You were 9.
I was 9. And so my dad would threaten me with my life if I told. And so I was 9. And at that point in time, I think it was right after my dad had beat my mom up really bad, and then he went for a walk with my dog. And while he was on the walk with my dog, I was like, Mom, I gotta tell you something. So I told her, and she didn't want to tell anybody, but she ended up calling a friend of hers who was a child psychiatrist or psychologist, and they by law have to report that.
Yes.
So the police came, they arrested my dad, and it went through an investigation, but nothing ever happened after that. He moved back in. Thankfully, the abuse stopped, but I didn't know about my brother at the time, And so, like, after finding out that my brother was also sexually abused, like, that really put a new perspective on my father as to him being just out there free in the world. So I've done a lot of research as an adult, trying to backtrack and figure out why it never was brought to trial, why it was only an investigation. And the sad part is, most reported sexual abuse cases never go to trial.
Well, okay, so here we go. So I was a protective services worker.
Oh, okay.
And I adore protectors. I know people like not another thing, but for real. So that's my background. And when I got out of college, my mother was raised in foster care. My mother was raised in foster care in the 50s and 60s. So you can only think about how repressive it was. She was in an abusive foster home, which is why I went on to be a foster care worker. Went to college on a whim. Trust me, I went on college because I kept getting jumped. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. This is the federal retired hood rat story, right? So I go and damn, what was I saying? Oh, so I come out and I'm a CPS worker. First, I did foster care, which is where the kids are already in care. CPS, we go out and investigate. It is not as easy as people think to corroborate um certain abuse. So for instance, the abusers know certain ways to penetrate or touch a child where it's not detectable in an exam. So if I don't penetrate you or use the semen, but I use my finger, that may not be something that a doctor at an exam, then they're going to interview you, which they should have done a forensic interview on you, which it seems like they didn't. But when it's a white man and a white family, let's just be honest, the worker sometimes comes in with a prejudice that this isn't true to begin with.
Yeah. Well, the crazy part is my dad admitted to it in the police report, and I have the police report. So,
but he backtracked. He said he was fucked up.
So, well, I actually remember being in a room with his attorneys or a group of adults telling me, "Hey, if you say that the abuse happened in Michigan also, because I had lived in Ohio and Illinois prior, then your dad's going to go to jail, your brother and you are going to go to foster care, and the abuse that you're going to endure there is going to be way worse."
And so you backtracked.
And so I had to backtrack and say the abuse didn't happen in Michigan. And because of that,
so that's it right there. And that's what I mean. You have kids that backtrack, and then we'll go out and investigate. And don't be wrong, I found a lot of cases. In most cases, in CPS are not true. Let's just be honest. There's a lot of bitter people call and say things, but in those cases, if the child backtracks the story, sometimes we have nothing. You know what I mean? And it's easy for people with a little bit of money, West Bloomfield attorneys, they go get private attorneys who set up these defenses that, you know what I mean? The county don't have the resources like that. Then they're already looking at this all-American white family, just being honest with the perfect life. And we're so used to coming in at CPS and seeing dirty house, no lights, no gas, gotta take them out, that this is like, oh, well, which is sad. I'm not making any excuses for it, but I'm just saying things aren't always as easy to substantiate, because with CPS we really have to have an ironclad case, and if we don't think you're going to hold up, now they're going to sue us. You know what I mean? All those things happen. Let me ask you this, Shelly, real quick, because I was going to ask you, but I'll wait to the end to talk about the closure piece. And don't forget, you're listening to the Retired Hood Rat podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to our YouTube, click like, and don't forget, I'm coming to your city on tour, the Live to Laugh tour, every first Wednesday of the month. Detroit. You can catch me at the Detroit House of Comedy. Doors open at 7:30. It's every first Wednesday. So March 1st, March 1st, April 5th. And every first Wednesday, whenever you listen to this show, remember, I'll be at the Detroit House of Comedy and Live to Laugh tour. Houston, I'm coming to your town April 20th to the Comedy Lounge. Tickets on sale now. April 16th, I'll be in Plano, Texas at the Plano House of Comedy and the shops at Legacy High-End Mall. Come get the tickets now. April 14th, Grand Rapids, coming to Ambrosia Theater. Go get your tickets down. And April 17th, Metaverse Soapstone Club in the Metaverse. I will be in the building. So go get your tickets, T. tbarbisfunny.com. And if you want to sponsor or advertise with me either on the tour or on this show, you can go to my website, tbarbisfunny.com, or leave me an email, tbarbentertainment. That's tbarbentertainment@gmail.com. We're sitting here with these ladies and we're talking narcissism, both in families and in relationships. Shelly T,
Yes.
you said your narcissism happened in a same-sex relationship
Yes.
with a woman
Yes.
abuser, which is something. And I love this show because at one point we're talking parents, and then we still have the perspective of a woman, because it's kind of said that this is men who are narcissists, and we have some comments even on TikTok saying, okay, are we talking about women too? At what point did you realize that the relationship was toxic, and did you realize it as narcissism or just not being right?
It was, I really relate to music a lot of ways. And I remember listening to this song by Bill Withers, Use Me. And I just was cool with it. And I remember it's like, this is crazy. Like, I remember thinking, like, I never related to this song at all. Like, I mean, of course, it was another generation, but like, just to hear it, and I'm like, just use me till you use me up. And it was like, this is the last, I'm up right now. Like, use me up.
So, and that's crazy because it's almost like when you go to church or something, it seemed like the pastor always talking to you. It seemed like the song is for you that you've been gigging to, but ain't never listened to the words. Now you like, what you say, dirty bitch?
If
Like,
it feels this good being used, because it felt so good in the beginning.
Yeah.
And even now, like, as somebody that's a recovering person, a person in recovery, like, not using drugs anymore in that sense. I still smoke weed, but that's different. It's like a drug, and you learn to live without it. It then doesn't, you remember the good times, and I look back and I'm, it's cool, but it just don't give. Like, it ain't even worth all the heartbreak. Like, it ain't.
Because a synopsis of your story for people who didn't listen to the Narcissist episode 1, if you just want to give us a quick blurb so they can kind of catch up.
Okay, so long story short, I dated a girl who came into my life when I was new to the city, and she just did everything perfect. Was there doing it all. Having lots of sex. It was just, we was living the life, sending it up. Okay, turning up. And it was just like a different dynamic that I ever experienced. It was like having a best friend and a lover. But she had some trifling ways about her. And she used the guise of being polyamorous as a way to be a hoe. And that's not cool. Like, long story short, she ended up fucking one of my close niggas, one of my favorite guys, and like getting with him. Didn't want me to date the guy no more. Like, just a lot of weird stuff. Yeah, like just would get,
which led to some drug use, which led to some arrests, and all
which led
that stuff.
to me doing drugs with the guy again, and then I ended up going to jail. Yeah,
Wah,
it,
wah,
yeah,
wah,
it was just
wah.
like life. You just, when you start seeing what life decision, one turn led to the next turn, like it was. Hold on, it was even to the point. I remember when I would first started talking to her, I had a life coach, and she's also a psychic as well. And I was seeing another guy at the time too, and she was like, "Don't get into anything with these people. Just have fun." And then, like the next week, the girl was like, "I want to be the only girl you talking to, or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay." So
you
then,
went and drunk the Kool-Aid, as they
Yeah.
say.
and it was just like, I remember thinking, like, I would have never made that decision to date her seriously. It would have never been that big of a deal of like, I mean, it still would have been a big of a deal of like just how she moved and everything. But it was just a lack of communication, a lot of lying or like omitting the truth.
Just different. Lisa, Oh, did she click out? Okay, we gotta get her back because I was gonna ask her about some signs. So, Breezy, you had some narcissism in your family, and Shelly, you also talk about having some parental issues, which then led to these type of relationships. So, Breezy, did that affect you in your relationships, and did
Oh
you end up
God,
dating a
yes.
narcissist?
Oh my God. Well, my first like love, um, looking back, I actually think I was the narcissist in the relationship.
Mm.
Because it was a similar thing when you meet that person and you feel that thing that you've never felt with anybody
Yeah.
else, and it feels so good and so special, and you don't want to lose it. But I was young and didn't understand how to be in a healthy relationship, so when I would do unhealthy things like you know stretch the truth or be controlling in some sort of way or whatever, it was because I didn't want to lose
Yeah.
this love. um and it was, I mean, it was a nightmare, like looking back, but it was great because I learned so much from it, and I was able to look back and see like, oh, I was doing a lot of the techniques that like I was raised on.
And you know what? I want to definitely congratulate you for that, because the first step of fixing an issue is to acknowledge that you have one. And that's one thing about breaking that curse, because a narcissist is never going to admit that it's them. They're always going to make it seem like you. Lisa, I wanted to ask you this. With being in domestic violence and seeing narcissism, what are some of the signs that people exhibit that characterize them as a narcissist or a potential abuser?
So first of all, we got to realize the domestic violence is never about the violence. It's always about the power and control. And so some of the signs that you're definitely going to see that's going to show you that this person is not just an abuser, this person is also a narcissist. Everything has to be to please this person. Everything is about this person. Everything, but they make it seem like they really caring about you. But I don't want you to see anybody. I love you so much. I don't want you to go anywhere else. Wherever you go, that person is probably going to be on your heels, because you can't go to a club or go to an event and drift away and talk to somebody else. That person is going to be right on your heels. And if you say something and it leads to an argument, it's going to be like, oh, wow, why did you do this to me? So a lot of the characteristics of a person that's an abuser and a person that's a narcissist at the same time is everything is about them. It's about their ability to control you and keep you under their wing. It's never about the violence. The violence generally happens when something ticks and you say this is not right and you get ready to leave. That's when generally the violence really begins to get even worse, when that abuser thinks that you kind of seen through them and you're getting ready to make a move.
So, because I think we hear this often, like, what's the difference between someone being aggressive and liking you and wanting to be under you and just having that potential, you know what I mean? Because some people say, okay, well, they're paying me attention, I'm just being nice. Is there a difference? Is there like something that really differentiates that?
It's
Because
a
when you were saying some things, and not to cut you off, I was like, damn, I got a couple homegirls like that. Shoot, you
it's
can't take a damn picture, bitch. Back up.
I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do anything. Let me tell you, I went to a picnic. My nephew had a Father's Day picnic that we used to have all the time. And I went to a picnic and I knew everybody. Everybody was from my hood. He was from the east side, I'm from the west side. So I knew everybody that was at the picnic. And guys from the neighborhood, they walking up, they talking to me. It's like, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. My god sister walked up to me. She immediately said, I see it. And I said, you see what? She said, this nigga eyes, like his eyes turned to the devil. He just turned into the devil. I knew at that point, I said, let me go on here and enjoy the little bit of time that I got at this picnic, because I'm about to have to go home and fight for my life. Because it's obsessive. it's to the point where if it's you can't say hi to anybody, you can't
Yeah.
smile at anybody. I've seen people at Shane Park at the concert and they're looking straight ahead. And I'm like, damn, they in a fucked up relationship because she can't look to her left or her
She
right.
can't look, a neck hurting.
She
She
can't
like,
look to the
damn,
left
gotta
or the
turn
right.
her whole body to
Yeah.
talk to him. Cause
Yeah.
she
And he got her cuffed up, hooked up. She can't move, and so it gets to the point where it's one thing for a person to want to love on you and hey, baby, I like you being around. I like your presence and this, but it's another thing when you can't move without that person either being right there on your heels, knowing where you at, or at one time when I finally left my abuser, I literally, me and my sister, like I was so mentally fucked up that I didn't even really realize I was being abused because I come from a tough exterior, tough neighborhood. Like the young lady said, my parents didn't give me that nurturing side. They provided everything. But, and so when I had my kids, it was like, I'm the mama, I'm the daddy. I got to get out here and grind. I don't have time to sit and tell y'all I love y'all all the time. I got to get out here and grind. So I had that type of mentality. I didn't even realize I was really being abused. But when I finally left, he called me, no, it wasn't about, because we counted 142 times. 142 times. On call 142, when I got through laughing, because I'm gone now. When I got through laughing, I could joke about, he said, bitch, I'm about to cancel Christmas for you. Because he had lost control. I was gone.
And you see that often with abusers. So Breezy, since you were saying that you transfer over into that narcissist role, what are some of the things that you felt like you were doing, and how did you identify that and kind of break that?
Yeah. I remember one specific event. So my ex-boyfriend, he was epileptic, and I remember saying something along the lines to him like, your parents don't care about you enough to have gotten you the right care when you were a kid, or something along those lines, basically gaslighting him into thinking that his parents don't care about him, but I do. I care about him. And I, like I said, it wasn't until I was out of that relationship and I was able to dissect the situation and be able to take, to take responsibility for, a lot of the, bad behavior, I guess, on my part. But I was able through that relationship to know what doesn't work in a relationship. So now I've been with my husband for 12 years, and we very much have, I would say a pretty healthy relationship for normal married couple. But I definitely look back on bad, just how I was raised and how the normalcy of that plays into any relationship in my life. I mean, even if it's just a brand new person I'm meeting, and I want to make sure that they like me, because that's important to my survival.
And I think that when you've been a victim of narcissism, because that's another thing that I fall prey to, just doing things to make people like you.
Yeah.
And doing it unconsciously, meaning that I'm a nice person, I'm going to go out my way. That's just who I am. I'll be picking up people's place. But to the point where it's like, I might cook your whole family a feast and pay for this, and not understanding that subconsciously I'm doing that, like, hey, like me, look what I can do.
Yeah.
Or meeting people and giving your resume or saying what you can do to help or who you are, like you're trying to prove your worthiness in this situation. And that comes from, because like I said, I was raised by that, and I think about my family history. My grandmother on one side was in a mental health institution. My mother was in prison. My father was in prison. My grandmother on that side was also in prison at one point. She was a streetwalker. So you have that type of energy, coming off. So of course my father was raised by a prostitute and his grandmother in the streets and so he had that propensity as a survivor, as a street guy, as a that whole persona, which is something that I picked up. So in order to please him, hell no, I won't go out with my friends. I stay here with you. I'll rub your back till you go to sleep. It's just certain things that I'm a daddy's girl, and it was to the point where they both had the same afflictions, but I wouldn't have never known on my daddy's side because he made my mother just seem so bad, which my mother had her issues, but it wasn't his job to make her seem as bad. Like you said, almost creating that divide between me and her, where I didn't idolize her the way I idolized him, but I didn't idolize her in no way. And that was a construct that he set up. And so I find myself overly pleasing, overly chasing when I don't have to do that. I can just stand on my greatness. So there are major effects, even if you don't become the narcissist, that you have from that. Do you see any effects you feel like, Shelly, from your bout?
So I've have taken on the label as a recovering people pleaser.
Nice.
Okay, all right.
So I try not to, lean into that people pleasing role that I've grown up into because I was around narcissists or people who had narcissistic tendencies growing up. I always was on like trying to be, like, how can I be the one that's not fucking up,
Yeah.
And so now, even like with my relationship with my dad was in the military, so I lived with my mom and I was not around. I see my dad, holidays or whatever. And because the way my dad was in the military, that like he was like very stern with me and stuff, and it wasn't a lot of affection there either. So it was like I just accepted that. Yeah, I wanted a hug.
Yeah.
And I accepted men that were not affectionate, like, and that show they love in other ways. But I knew that I always wanted that love. So that's why it hit harder when I ended up with dating that girl, because it was like that first like love. Because with guys, like, I feel like they have shown me love in the past and may have really loved me, but it was never like unconditional in a sense.
I know what you're saying. And men just tend not to be as nurturing with the rubbing, with the hey baby, those things. So let me ask you this.
But I have gotten bamboozled with some shit like that too. Like, for example, I was seeing a guy and we, had made it plain that it was like, we were just seeing each other, but they had also told me they didn't want a relationship. But now looking back, I noticed that they had did things to make me comfortable with being, just fucking around or whatever. Like the first time I came over there, I stayed the night. They made me breakfast in bed. So I'm like, bitch, I'm texting my friends like, oh shit, this some, they pulling out the tricks or whatever,
The breakfast tray.
Yeah, like that or whatever. But they end up, just starting doing those type of things just to make me comfortable with getting less than what I really should have been getting.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Manipulation.
Yeah, it happens that way. That keeps you on the hook. Let me ask you this, Lisa. Is there closure? Is there a such thing as closure when it comes to leaving a narcissist or in a domestic violence situation?
There is closure. There is closure, but I think that what we have to realize is closure may not always involve that person. Closure has to be within your heart. And like you said at the beginning of this session, you being willing and able and ready to let go and grow. For me, I thought was closure. Like, I gotta see you, motherfucker. I gotta be in your face. I gotta be able to tell you how you hurt me, where it bled, and what you did. But that's not what closure is. Closure is about yourself and you being willing and able to open up your heart to love, open up your heart to change, open up your heart to understanding that you deserve better and you could go out and get better. And it's time to grow. And I even had to tell my kids with that, with some shit that I had lacked on with them during my bad relationships. I had to, seek closure with my now adult children. But what I had to tell them is, I'm giving y'all one day to gut punch me. Come with everything you got that I didn't do and that you didn't get from me. And I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to find ways to make it up to you. But after today, damn it, nobody gets to continue to hold me an emotional hostage to my past. And that was my closure.
That's amazing.
I
Very
like that.
powerful.
I really do like that because it's almost like in a relationship, if somebody does something, you got to talk about it and let it go.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
people who keep bringing it up because it's like having a sore and letting it heal with the scab, and you pick it off every time. Let's power those through this in a way for you, Breezy, especially because you can't change your parents. You're still gonna be there for them. Was there such thing as closure?
There has been closure because I have been able to, re-explore the investigation as an adult, get some, I guess, closure with that. And I have been able to, I'm a mother of two, and that's the best blessing ever in my life. And I'm able to be a really great mom because of having dealt with not having good parents. So, um, for that, I'm grateful. And I feel like there's, dealing with your family, like it always starts in the family, like you said. It's like you can go back to that for all the lessons that you will have in your life. They can all be drawn back to how you were treated as a child, the dynamic of your parents and your family and your siblings, whether it's you're an adult and it's your workplace or your romantic relationships or your friend relationships. Yeah, a lot of it can go back. You can see it just right there, like looking at a museum. This is what my life was like. These were the bad, toxic behaviors. And you can either choose to witness them in others when they present themselves, or you can be, I guess, ignorance is bliss sometimes. So,
Ignorance is bliss. Oh God, why did I find it out? Shelly T, with you, closure, yes or no?
So with my particular situation, I don't I feel like I have gotten closure with it because every time I try to have some kind of reconciliation with it, because I feel like it's different with just the normal heterosexual relationships. Usually you part ways and you don't really talk again, but with her it was like, well, we at least be friends. But then when she started, every time I'm trying to heal from this shit, you keep cutting me, bitch. Like,
Slice. Because
yeah, like,
people are who they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just was like expecting like my absence to maybe speak for, up for me. And then it would speak up for me in the sense of like enough to her to be like, okay, I'm good for 2 weeks. Then I'm back. Yeah.
You thought some absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah,
You
she's
was
like,
going with
I got you,
Hallmark.
bitch. Yeah, got you right back.
Come here,
Don't keep inviting that pain back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't.
Man.
I think that is something that we do, and I think that everybody kind of spoke to what you said, Lisa, which is enclosure is within you. And sometimes we want to keep having these conversations because you want the person to say what you want them to say, but they're not gonna say that.
Okay.
You want them to be like, you know what? I was an asshole. I love you so
They're
much.
not.
I'm gonna do the good parts of me. I'm not gonna be this asshole anymore.
So-
Bow. Here comes the chariot, and there's the sunset right there. And that shit ain't gonna happen like that. Lisa, if there's something that you can leave our audience or our guests with regarding domestic violence, being strong and breaking those chains of narcissism, what is it?
My message
And
is
how can they
always
follow you too and find you?
learn to love yourself before you trying to love anybody else. That was my biggest mistake. I tried to love everybody else before I learned to love Lisa. Learn to love yourself first. If you want to find me, you want to talk to me, you need some help, anything, call me 313-740-1761. Purple Girls Rock.
Purple Girls, and we will put the information for everybody on our YouTube. That's why go to YouTube, Comedian T.Barb. I'll make sure I drop some information on each of the guests and how you can contact them. Shelly T, if you can leave, getting out these situations, moving forward with your life, and how can they keep in contact with you?
So I would say the biggest thing, and this is like I would say it's kind of simple, but get you something to do. Get you some hobbies. Find something
Mhm.
to occupy your mind outside of the shit you've been doing.
I
Because
like that.
that is insanity
Mhm.
to keep going to the same places, seeing the same people, hoping shit gonna change. It's not. You got to find you some new shit to do.
You say a change
It's gonna
gonna
come.
come. Not bitch, not today.
Not today. If you keep hanging out in the same corners, think you gonna grow. You're not. So I would say just find some new activities. You know, I would say one of the biggest things that have helped me is to tap into my inner child and go back and enjoy things that I enjoyed when I was younger. Really enjoy riding bikes. I enjoy going by the water. I really enjoy being at Belle Isle. I just really enjoy being a kid. Like, and in this world where we gotta be an adult all the time, and I like coloring, stuff like that. That just not on this phone, because this is a lot of reminders of bullshit too. You
That's
know,
awesome.
I need
um,
to color.
yes,
Coloring
it's
actually
so
activates the left side of your brain.
it's very therapeutic. I love concerts. Well, like you said, Lisa, just getting back to loving me, like makes me a better person for others. So like I had to work on me, and
Because really, you are the shit. Once you know that, like you are
yeah.
that deal.
And you won't let nobody just slide in, because like my peace of mind by myself is so dope. Like that space that I've created for me is so cool and so peaceful that I can't let you just come over here and fuck it up off some
And
just
you
over some.
control it.
Yeah, and I control it. This is all in my degree of control, my what I can control. So why would I? I got a million and one things I could be working on too. Like, so that's another thing too. I feel like a lot of people who just want to just be on autopilot, as far as like they go to work, they go home, they have sex, they eat, like, it's easy. Those are the easy things to do. But to step outside of that and go and do things and pursue your dreams and pursue happiness, it's a little more challenging. So, but that's what we live for. That's what gives life meaning.
Love it.
Love. How can they keep in contact with you,
Y'all
Shelly?
can follow me on all platforms at Shelly with the Fade. That's SHELLYWITDAFADE. I know I ain't got no fade, but you can catch one. No, I don't fight anymore. And Aquamoon on SoundCloud, because I do have music as well. Yes, and I got plenty shows coming up. Follow me on Instagram. See that. Come check me out. I do stand up as well. Yes.
Yes.
Follow me.
Shelly T, follow her. And Breezee Gonzales, going through all that you went through, what is some advice you can give to people trying to break that cycle, and how can they keep up with you as well?
I would say that you are worth the trouble of getting out of that bad situation. The big part of narcissism is that they make you think that you will never survive without them. And to be able to have faith and get over that hump, um, you have no idea what life has in store for you to break that cycle.
Facts.
And just to touch on what you said about getting a hobby, I feel like when you break out of a relationship like that, it is so transformative that you have no other option than to put it to something creative.
Facts.
Or do something that's going to enrich you as an individual. And that's why we're here. It's to be ourselves and to be strong within ourselves, and break bad cycles of history.
I'm living my best life. Like, no, how can they follow you, Breezy?
I'm on TikTok. You can follow me at velour_round. That's VELOUR round.
Velour around. Oh my God, ladies, this has been a great conversation. Of
It
course,
really
I'm your
has.
host, comedian T.Barb. Don't forget, every Monday at 9 a.m. YouTube, meet us live Mondays at 9 a.m. And every Thursday, Apple Podcasts. Go download Retired, Hood Rat Podcast. Keep up with us because all of our episodes are downloaded to all platforms, Google Play, Apple Music, Spotify, every Thursday. So you can catch all of our episodes. Don't forget, next week we're probably talking gossip, I think, because every once in a while we got to come back and talk about all this stuff. But I really want to talk global warming. Is it real? Is it not real? What is going on with the damn earth? If you're from Detroit like we are, we had a day where it snowed all morning, and by the afternoon it was 50 degrees. We was barbecuing. And the same day fireplace was on, barbecue pit was lit. So we need to talk about what this means for us. Eggs, $27 for two. I mean, we got to talk about it. And make sure you follow me on all platforms. TikTok, I am T.Barb. I mean, wrong. Instagram. Hold on. Instagram, I am T.Barb. TikTok, Comedian T.Barb. And don't forget Live to Laugh Tour. So Houston, Dallas, Plano, Metaverse, Grand Rapids, Detroit. If you want tickets, tbarbisfunny.com. And don't forget, March 1st, April 5th, come see me at the Detroit House of Comedy inside of Hockey Town next door to Fox Theater. And I'm in the Metaverse every Thursday and the Ladies of Comedy Museum inside of Horizon World. So if you have an Oculus, meet me there every Thursday. Make sure you follow these ladies. Break the cycle. Okay. If you want to grow, let it go. Thank you, ladies, so much. That wraps up this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.